Why does NAPTOSA find ANAs problematic? First of all, there are 3 misperceptions out there in the public domain, and we must correct them. Number 1, not doing ANAs is not harming our children's education. It's not true when people say it is harming education. Indeed, it is in fact protecting them from abuses, such as teaching to the test, practicing tests, neglecting the other subjects in the curriculum, and training rather than developing higher order thinking. Not writing ANAs allows teachers to focus on the whole curriculum in the CAPS documents. Number 2, the misconception teachers are lazy and don't want to do ANAs because of the work. That too is not true. We reject doing work that serves no meaningful purpose. We are not rejecting because of the extra work, although that is true, it is extra work. But there has been no effective remediation and support forthcoming, and there has been no time to rectify the deficiencies in learners' knowledge in the time between tests. Thirdly, unions have been accused of only complaining now that it is critical test time. And why didn't they say this before? Well, we have in fact said it before, and we've been trying to get the department's attention for 3 years on curriculum and assessment matters and have not been heard. So this was a desperate measure in order to deal with something that is critical. Now for some points of clarification, just so that we understand the terms that are bandied about when ANAs are discussed. First of all, the current intended or actual uses or purposes of writing ANAs. There are actually 4. First of all, systemic, then diagnostic, then summative, and also for accountability purposes. Let's get something right about the term systemic, because that's most frequently used. Systemic tests test the education system, not individual learners, schools, districts, and officials. But these tests have to be constructed in a very specific manner that makes comparisons between the annual results comparable. If we don't construct the test correctly, we cannot validly compare one year with the next. I won't go into the details of how systemic tests must be constructed, but we cannot use the current kind of test to make the comparisons that we do. And this has been commented on frequently by academics who work in this field. Another matter is systemic tests should test skills rather than specific content knowledge. And then if the test is to test the system, it's not necessary to do this every 3 years. Neither is it necessary to test every learner in the system. A sample would be perfectly adequate. To obtain greater accuracy, reliability, and other important things when we want to make comparisons, these tests should be independently marked rather than by the teachers of the learners, where there is always the possibility of differing standards and to some extent, which has already been alleged, cheating. So these tests should be marked independently in central locations. If it is a sample, and if it's only done every 3 years, we will reduce the cost of the exercise considerably. That money could be put to better use, such as training teachers to teach the subject knowledge where it is found to be somewhat deficient. And also, these tests would not be high stakes, because we wouldn't be able to have the league tables and the comparisons between learners, schools, districts, and so on. The second use, diagnostic. Diagnostic tests are to test what individual learners know. And once again, it could be testing foundational knowledge as well as the curriculum content for a particular grade. But the test has to be designed specifically to do this. You do have to set a diagnostic test that sets, for example, grade 9 maths knowledge. But you also have to put into the test the kind of knowledge and skills required to enable them to access that grade 9 knowledge. And what has happened in the current tests is that the question is too difficult for the learner, so it is left entirely blank. So we're not able to even see what knowledge this learner has. At what point has the learner lost an understanding of mathematics? The paper is entirely blank, so it provides no useful information, except to say that the learners don't know that concept, but we don't know why they don't know that concept. Diagnostic tests also have to be very carefully constructed. It might then be necessary to have diagnostic tests every year, because at the exit points, that would be grade 3, 6, and 9. And each individual learner would have to be given a detailed report. It would be ideal if this could be computerized based on the particular progress through the questions. The results would then be able to help remediate individual learners according to individual needs. And the results would also show where teachers need professional development, much more specifically. And it would lead back to where in the prior grades was the knowledge lost or not actually accomplished. These tests could be combined with systemic test questions if it's very carefully constructed, but it would be more expensive because the frequency would be increased. The third use, which our current tests are also used for summative purposes. Summative tests are supposed to test the knowledge and skill prescribed in the curriculum for a particular grade at a particular point. Normally, summative tests are done at the end of a session of learning, an end of a term, and of course the final assessments at the end of a school year. And those marks are in fact used for progression or promotion purposes. It does not necessarily test the foundational knowledge. It's not going to check if you know how to do grade 3 fractions in grade 9. But knowing how to do grade 3 fractions in grade 9 will certainly have an impact on operations in grade 9 mathematics. But you don't test that. They should then, if they're summative purposes, be at the end of the year, and they must count towards the progression. This would make them high stakes for learners and is actually not the purpose of national standardized testing. Summative testing is what schools have always done at the end of school years, issued a school report giving the promotion progression decision. And the fourth purpose of ANAs is accountability. Now that's not really a legitimate purpose, but nevertheless it is used in our system. Tests are administered to make sure that teachers are teaching the curriculum and that the learners are working and hopefully achieving. The test result is used to rank provinces, districts, schools, and to name and shame schools and teachers that perform poorly. That is not really the purpose of this kind of testing. Although internationally it would appear that governments do use that as a means of ensuring accountability. What is really worse in our system is that ANA preparation is used as a disciplinary measure to make learners work. That a lot of time is spent doing ANA preparation, which appears to keep learners busy, because in fact there are other deficiencies, that learners don't really want to learn, there isn't engagement, and so by saying if you don't do well in the ANA you're going to fail, they threaten learners to attempt to perform well in ANAs. And I'm really concerned that this is killing a genuine love for learning and enthusiasm for schoolwork. And we need to work with teachers so that they can engage learners in learning and that they in fact find learning pleasurable, rather than having to be forced to do workbooks in order to keep working and not rioting in a classroom. In my opinion, we have a real problem. How will we build a nation that loves and values learning when it is undertaken under threat? But of course, that's a topic for another day, perhaps next year. There are better ways of achieving accountability. Competent officials must do their job and address problems where they find them. They can do that more immediately than an annual national assessment, which receives information and results many months after the fact. If the officials were in touch with their schools, they could offer the required assistance and, if necessary, admonition if they're not performing. So I don't believe accountability is a fair use of these tests. To back us up, we have international and local academics who've expressed the opinion that they are not in favor of standardized testing as an improvement tool in our school system. When there's been this debate in the press, many academics have in fact expressed their opinion, our local academics. And the bottom line of what they're saying is that testing does not lead to improvement in achievement. Obviously, effective teaching for learning does this. Teachers need time to teach the curriculum properly. Countries that use standardized testing do so under government pressure, applying what we call now the global economic reform movement strategies, which includes a lot of competitive elements as well as standardized testing, and we lack an attention to collaboration and the things that we believe in our union make effective teaching and learning environments. We really need to fight hard about the global economic reform movement strategies. It was a major topic at our Education International Congress that we attended in Canada in July. Perhaps Basil will address that at some other stage. Just to lighten our mood and just to show how ridiculous this all is, here's the cartoon. I think I showed it to you last year. We have a monkey and an elephant and a penguin and a goldfish and a dolphin and a dog, all instructed to participate in the same exam, climb a tree. That's the task. Clearly the task is not designed to suit the needs of the learners. So that's one aspect. To have a standardized test does not take into account individuals' particular circumstances, context, needs. And then another matter, when we are dealing with standardized tests and the focus on testing only in mathematics and languages, we are leaving out other aspects of the curriculum which are necessary for a balanced human being and a good citizen of our country and the world. We are not working with senses of wonder when you're bored with filling in repetitive exercises in a workbook. We are unlikely to be engaged in humor, looking at beauty, and big picture thinking. There isn't that creative element possible if you're so focused on teaching for a test. There are other factors that impact on ANA results. The length of the CAPS curriculum requires teaching at a pace that most of our learners can't keep up with. Teachers are ticking off the topic, provided they have let it out into the classroom. It's ticked. Whether the learners have grasped the concept or not, the teacher moves to the next concept because of district officials insisting that they're keeping up with the pacing document. Our learners are not learning. That is what we have been saying to the ministry for years without receiving attention. Inadequate early learning opportunities, that's nothing new. Our early learning centres are not providing adequate preparation in pre-numeracy and pre-literacy skills. Our children need to be exposed to storytelling, story reading from a very early age. They need to play, they need to engage much more. Some of these centres now have learners sitting in rows of desks, pretending they're now in big school. And they're in fact not doing the necessary things for pre-literacy and pre-numeracy, which are fun things and games that children respond to easily. We also must not forget our social factors, which also makes our system very uneven. Poverty, poor health, poor nutrition, and absent parents. We also have totally disregarded learners with special needs, who at the present are required to write exactly the same tests as the learners who have no barriers to learning. And learners who are not learning in their mother tongue, who have started in an English language school from grade 1 and have had to learn the concepts in mathematics, for instance, in a non-mother tongue is really problematic, and it takes a long time for their language to catch up. So there are many other reasons which I'm sure you as teachers in schools will be able to add. So where does NAPTOSA stand on ANAs? Firstly, we reject ANAs because of the excessive focus on them. We reject the nature of it being high stakes. We question the frequency. We question the time in the year that they should be done. It's really difficult to test in September because learners need time to consolidate their knowledge and their skills. And that only happens by the end of a school year. We deplore the lack of follow-up effective teacher development opportunities for teachers who need it. We don't necessarily reject standardized testing outright. We question its purpose and reject its current use of the results.